Hey guys, and welcome to the first From Lawns to Arenas tennis podcast. My name is Anthony Hirsch, and welcome to the tennis commentary booth. So this is a podcast that I want to start to do where I can basically talk about anything that I want to, whether it's something that happened in the last week, something coming up, something in the news, something that I think about tennis and a way in which I think the sport can improve or grow, or just anything at all that's going on in tennis that I think is interesting to talk about. This is kind of a podcast that I want to start doing weekly, where I kind of talk about those things and talk about what's going on, and also maybe even dive into interviews. That's something I'd love to do. We'll see what happens. But yeah, my name's Anthony Hirsch, and welcome to the tennis commentary booth. So there are a few things I want to touch upon in this video. I didn't really do a recap of the US Open, so I want to quickly do some kind of recap of some stuff going on in that. Maybe cover a few of the events that happened this week from the 12th to the 17th. No huge tournaments going on outside of Davis Cup, which does come with its prestige. People playing for their own nations, very historic tournament. Going way back, I feel like the format that has happened nowadays has resulted in probably some bad timing right after the US Open, which resulted in some withdrawals, including Carlos Alcaraz, who made the semifinals of the US Open, been one of the best players this year. He's withdrew from the tournament, as well as a multitude of other players. The timing of the tournament, then also just, I feel like just the greatness of the tournament has been kind of shortened down, everything kind of shortened down, and it's not something I personally enjoy. But the Davis Cup was on this week, and some other tournaments as well, so that's something I want to talk about. I want to talk about the Davis Cup, and also tournaments coming up, Laver Cup, Guadalajara, tennis in China on the horizon, Shanghai is coming up, so that's some stuff that I want to talk about and discuss. I also want to start something else, a few new things going on here for the channel. I also want to do Grand Slam Awards, which caps off the Grand Slam season right after the US Open every year, where I talk about awards for the Grand Slams as a whole, whether it be Australian Open, French Open, Wimbledon, or the US Open. Just like player of the year, match of the year, but for example, match of the year, it has to be from a Grand Slam. It can't be Cincinnati final between Alcaraz and Djokovic. It has to be from one of the four majors. And that's not to say that one of the other tournaments can't have the match of the year, but in the Grand Slam awards, it's only for the four majors that we all know. So it's just those four kind of Grand Slam tournaments. But yeah, without further ado, there's some stuff I want to talk about, and then I guess I'll cap off the podcast with the kind of Grand Slam awards, you can call it. But something else going on this week, aside from the Davis Cup, that I actually want to mention first, especially with Laver Cup around the corner as well, is the Ultimate Tennis Showdown. UTS. It's something that I think is hilarious and that I really enjoy, just like the different cards that certain players can play, like if you've never seen this UTS, where it's actually kind of hard to find coverage of it, but it's almost like a card game, but it's like tennis, but you have different cards that you can play. Okay, now your opponent, you played this card, now your opponent can't have a second serve. And it's also crazy because there's like songs playing, the crowd gets all involved, you have different matchups like prepared. It's like basketball, there are quarters, there are timed quarters. Once the timer runs out, whoever has the most points wins that quarter. If you have a 10-point advantage, it's just called a KO match, and the set ends there. But instead of sets, there are quarters, and it's timed. It's very unique in tennis, but I personally really like it, and I think it brings something crazy to tennis, and it really raises the entertainment value rather than necessarily just what you see week in, week out. Kind of like the Laver Cup too. You have people talking on the side of the court. It's kind of for fun. Laver Cup is a little bit less exhibition-y, but more kind of like real kind of ATP stuff, like tournaments and events and sanctioned tournaments. But it's it's a really fun tournament, and it started in I believe in 2020, pretty much out of pandemic boredom, by Patrick Muratoglu and also Alex Papirin, who's actually the father of Alexei Papirin, who's on the tour, won Umag, beat Wawrinka in the final. It was started by them in 2020. It was this was the 2nd edition of the season, 6th edition overall, 7th edition including women's as well. They had one back in 2020. But yeah, it's just a really crazy, fun tournament, and I'd love to see more stuff in tennis like that, where it's like, where it has this fun format where it's like you bring 2 players out like with wrestling names, like you have like Rublev went by Rublo, Dimitrov went by G Unit. It's like this kind of fun kind of take on tennis, and some people won't like it that think tennis should always be very buttoned down and stuff, and I understand that, but I'm not on that side. I think it's great, and I love the music in the back and just the fun kind of atmosphere. That's what you'd love to see. I'd love to have more tournaments like this, where you have different matchups that you think are super interesting and bringing them together almost like a wrestling match, like Sinner Alcaraz, or maybe even like Kyrgios Nadal, like 2 players that don't even necessarily probably like each other, have this like kind of public feud, but just maxing out the entertainment value that tennis brings that's what I like about UTS. So I just wanted to say that Rublev won the tournament. He beat Dimitrov in the final. They play with a singles net. That's also different from usual. They don't have the doubles alleys or the doubles net, which extends further, but usually with a marketing sign. But they have. So it's like you see more players hitting around the net and stuff, but listen, that's tennis. I mean, the reason they have the doubles line and the doubles net is because of doubles and because of the marketing sign where you can put different companies, but I like it. I think it's interesting. I mean, I like it. I like the courts with the aesthetics of the doubles alleys, and also so that players can play doubles, because I think doubles is a great addition to the sport that's needed and has pretty much the same history as singles. Deep, rich history, but I think I like the singles courts, and I think it's a fun little addition as well. So I just I like unique things like that in tennis, trying out new things that really brings this kind of new kind of atmosphere that's really laid back and fun and energetic, and really just brings something new to what we see week in, week out, because that's how you improve the sport, adding variety, different surfaces, different rules, different games, and you want to keep the same kind of base that we have, but I think it's great. Anyway, those are my thoughts on UTS. I think it's fun. What else? And then, yeah, I want to bring that up also because Laver Cup is coming up, which is always interesting. Team World versus Team Europe. Something I was thinking about Laver Cup, which is interesting. That Laver Cup I want to talk about because it's coming up in about a week's time, a little bit less than a week. Laver Cup is interesting because it's Team World versus Team Europe. Europe is just one continent. But think about this. Only one non-European player, I believe, has won any of the Grand Slams since, I don't remember when, I think 2004, 2005. It's been a long time since a non-European player has won outside of Del Potro at the 2009 US Open. He's the only one from South America who's won one. So it makes sense having Europe, this giant force in tennis nowadays, versus the rest of the world. But it wasn't always like this. America and Australia, part of Team World, they were dominant in tennis for a long time. That's part of why they have the majors, have half the majors. It's stuff like that where it's like it's crazy that nowadays it feels like an even matchup for even more one-sided towards Team Europe, because back in the day, if you go to the 90s, then Team World would probably have the advantage with all the American players. And back in the, back in probably the 60s, Team World would have way the advantage with the Australian players added in as well, with Laver, among other players, Pancho Gonzalez as well for America. It's like, back in the day, no. Back in the day, you would have, Team World would be winning. But nowadays, Team Europe is crushing it. We see that with the big three as well, with the big four. So, anyway, but the Laver Cup is interesting. Federer introduced it. He's coming back for like an on-court interview. So, yeah, Federer, for whoever doesn't know, he's just He's a personal favorite of mine. I always love watching Federer play. He's one of the best of all time. Super dominant stats right out of the gate. Incredible longevity, incredible prime, and stayed with the best players we've ever seen in the sport, Nadal and Djokovic, for a long time, even as he got older. Even with a little bit of an age gap between him and Djokovic, and Djokovic and Nadal needed Federer to improve. So anyway, I can speak on about Federer forever, but fantastic player and one of the most talented shot makers we've ever seen in any sport, I think. And yeah, it's sad to see him go. I'll be happy when he returns, because to me, there's just nobody like Federer. He's the most influential player, I think, that's ever played the game. So I'll be happy to see another interview from the Swiss maestro. But yeah, that's a year from since when he retired. But tennis keeps going, and he lives on as long as the sport lives on, because he was that crazy and that influential on it. But yeah, what else to talk about? Guadalajara is around the corner. Everybody withdrew from the tournament. There are a lot of withdrawals. Swiatek is out. Sabalenka is out. There's a chance for a player like hard-hitting Madison Keys, who just reached the semifinals of the U.S. Open, on the women's side to do something. So, or any of those players outside of the top 10. The only two players from the top 10 that are in the tournament are Ons Jabeur and Maria Sakkari. And both of those players have not been doing well. Jabeur just lost to Potapova in San Diego. And then to add to Jabeur, there's also Maria Sakkari as well, who lost to Emma Navarro in San Diego. By the way, in San Diego, Krejcikova, finally on a good streak, beat also returning Sofia Kenin in the final. Krejcikova getting it done. Also, Siniakova back in the #1 double spot, her partner. Those are a few things going on the women's side, but yeah, Krejcikova finally in good form after really a bad streak for most of the season. It was really kind of her curse that she put on herself. She was like, yeah, I'm part of the Big Four. People are forgetting about me. There's Rybakina, Sabalenka, and Swiatek, but people are forgetting about Barbara Krejcikova. And that just really has turned against her completely, because she has been struggling to win more than one or two matches consecutively since she's made that statement. But yeah, those are a few things going on. Also, American teenager Ashley Kruger got the win in Osaka over Lin Zhu. There was not a single top 30 player in that WTA 250 event. There's nobody in the top 20, I think, is allowed to play. Lin Zhu was the top seed. Very great player, by the way. She did well a couple of weeks ago as well, going into, I believe, the U.S. Open lead-up tournament. I forgot where it was now, but she's been doing well recently. Beat Caroline Garcia, I believe, in that tournament. Yeah, there's not a single player above number 35 in the world playing in that tournament. I just think it's unfortunate. You want as many. I mean, there are people coming out to those cities, those tournaments. You want to raise every tournament as much as you can. I don't see the point in putting such a big limitation on those tournaments. So I would hope that gets more thought by the WTA, for sure. But yeah, that was something that went down. And then Davis Cup. I want to talk about Davis Cup, then I'll do a brief recap on the U.S. Open. If there's anything else I think about to touch upon, but I'll do that, and then I want to get to the Grand Slam awards. I have like 14 or 15 different categories. Some I'll breeze through, some not. But like Match of the Year, Player of the Year, that'll be later for the Grand Slam awards. First annual. I'm hoping there will be a second annual and a third maybe as well down the road. But yeah, I'll do that in a bit. In Davis Cup, some of the teams that went through to the finals. So the way they do it now, they don't have every round individually throughout the year. They just have they have the first part of the Davis Cup, then they have the finals in November. It's like, I don't know, it's completely different from how they used to do it, but Finland with the crazy 3-0 win over America. Partially, you can chalk it up to timing. Fritz didn't play, and then also three of the Tommy Paul and like Ben Shelton, like a lot of these players who did well during the U.S. Open, some of them didn't play, some of them didn't perform because they're just coming off the U.S. Open, so you can chalk it up to that. That's another thing. You have to think about tennis scheduling, the timing of these tournaments. You just have to think the priority has to be the players and giving them time to regroup. I mean, they're not just, I mean, they're human beings who have their own health and fitness. Even though they're supreme athletes, you have to think the scheduling isn't great coming right off of New York. But yeah, some of these teams definitely upsets. There were a lot of upsets. Like I said, there were a lot of withdrawals. So a lot of these countries didn't have the players that they would have wanted to have. But by the way, Canada got through, and they didn't even have F.A., Shapo, Raonic. They didn't have any of those players, and they got that. Canada went 3-0 on Italy anyway. So there are just a few things going on. Djokovic played very well. He got a win over Fokina. Bornagoyo, who did well at the U.S. Open, reached the 4th round, lost to Djokovic. He won over Greek sport Antiafo, so watch out for him. Menzik, young guy, got the win over Lajovic. What else? Wawrinka beat Nori. Nori is completely out of form. Hugo Kumbera has been playing really well. He's a young guy who's really has everything that you want. He has the game, he has the talent, but he just, for whatever reason, just can't quite put it together. You see that sometimes, but it's always a rare, weird thing. So hopefully he really figures it out. He's been losing a lot of close matches this year, but he's a very talented lefty player. Not the hardest hitter around, but very crafty, talented player anyway. And then, yeah, also Jack Draper with an epic win over Thanasi Kokkinakis, the Australian. Kokkinakis can't stop losing in epic matches. And what else? Evans beat Demonor, both guys in form. That was a great match as well. A few things going on at Davis Cup. And also, speaking of America Davis Cup, Rusevori beat Tommy Paul, which I thought was a good win as well. Tommy Paul with a few slightly lackluster matches at Davis Cup, but he did well at the U.S. Open as well. So the timing of Davis Cup to U.S. Open, from U.S. Open to Davis Cup, because U.S. Open finished on the 11th, Davis Cup started on the 12th. It's just really, really not good timing. Speaking of, I want to talk about the U.S. Open a bit. I didn't get to do a U.S. Open recap video, so now in this From Lawns to Arenas podcast, this new podcast, I'm going to try to talk about it. By the way, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Tennis commentary booth with Anthony Hirsch. Don't forget to subscribe. Like the video as well if you're enjoying it. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it. What do I have for the U.S. Open to talk about? So for me, the match that stands out whenever I think about the U.S. Open is Medvedev versus Alcaraz. Listen, some people just started counting out this matchup completely from bringing us epic matches after Alcaraz beat him 6-3, 6-3, 6-3 at Wimbledon. But grass isn't Medvedev's strong suit, let's be honest. And Alcaraz really figured out grass courts this year, it seems like, which I think surprised a lot of people, including myself, in a big way. I thought his game was gonna suit grass at some point, aside from maybe the serve, but the serve's gotten a lot better this year too. The forehand's bigger than ever. I mean, the grass was very good for him this year for Alcaraz, but either way, then Indian Wells final on hard courts, but slow hard courts. 6-3, 6-2 over Medvedev. Some people thought this was never going to be a good matchup. I still wanted to see it at the U.S. Open, where I thought Medvedev's serving performance was going to be as good as ever, and finally do some damage. Medvedev as defensive as Medvedev's game is, he needs the faster courts for his game to be effective at all. Because, listen, people see defensive games, they're like, oh, that'll be good on clay. That'll be good on a slower surface. Well, the defensive game isn't going to be that effective unless it's really doing damage and speeding through the court. And that's why faster courts partially are really good for Medvedev. His defense, his depth, his pace that he can get on the ball allows his defense to offense to be really effective. His serve, faster courts are good for Medvedev for a reason. And I don't know, Alcaraz looked the one that was a little bit more out of position in the match, and he wasn't hitting the regular winners. He was actually hitting more errors than usual. Medvedev's serve wasn't even incredible in the first set, to be honest. I think it was like 54%, but that quickly went up to 70% plus. His serving in the last 3 sets was phenomenal, and it was pretty good in the first set too, not to diminish his playing in the first set. He was amazing the whole way through. Medvedev was just in the zone, and it was just amazing to see Daniil Medvedev, who won the U.S. Open 2 years ago. I think some people forgot. He won the U.S. Open 2 years ago. People counted him out from the matchup. I didn't count him out completely. I was still excited to watch it. And Medvedev, Alcaraz, 2 guys who hit crazy shots from crazy positions, 2 very big talents. unorthodox players. One guy more lateral movement, side to side. One guy more kind of up and down in the court, defense to offense from Medvedev. From Alcaraz, kind of offense going in and out of the court. Medvedev side to side running. It's like two guys, very creative, inventive players, but opposite game styles, like offensive, defensive. And I was excited to see what their match would be like. At Indian Wells, nothing. At Wimbledon, nothing. But on a faster hard court like New York, where Medvedev won 2 years ago and seems to always play well, he finally got it done. And I think last year, just last thing on the Medvedev, I think last year was kind of an anomaly. There's an amazing match against Kyrgios. It was 7-6, like 14-12 in the breaker, I think. One of the sets of the year, in my opinion, the first set, and that match was really crazy. Kyrgios played great and seems to be a nightmare for Medvedev, at least last year, especially when the serve and volleying wasn't that great and Medvedev was struggling with the forehand to get the depth that usually gets on his shots. Last year, hit more errors than usual, just couldn't find his game to be as effective and dangerous as usual. Kyrgios was really a nightmare for him. He lost in the fourth round, but I think at this point Medvedev is going to be a semifinal or final mainstay at the U.S. Open, at least quarterfinals. I mean, he plays crazy at the U.S. Open, so I think next year is not going to be any different. And I expected him to show up this year too, so I was happy he did despite his results in Canada and Cincinnati, getting revenge over beat him in Canada. So I was happy to see Medvedev flip the matchup on its head, play in the zone, probably the most impressive performance I saw at the U.S. Open. I mean, Djokovic in the final against Medvedev was quite impressive as well as some other performances as well, but Medvedev played absolutely out of his mind. On the women's side, semifinal, Sabalenka beating Madsen Keys, incredible comeback. It was a third set tiebreak. Keys played insane. Bageled Sabalenka in the first set, also played in the zone. There are a few great in the zone performances at the U.S. Open. Zhang beating Jabeur played great. There's some interesting stuff at the U.S. Open going on. I'm trying to think of some other things that would be interesting to talk about. But Djokovic got number 24. It's going to be interesting to see. I think the story going into next year is Djokovic is at the top of the mountain. How much longer is he going to stay there, and how is he going to try for even more? Is he going to climb up to 400 weeks at number 1? Is he going to reach slam number 25? Is he going for the Olympics next year? There's always going to be new motivations for guys who are that good. Guys like him who believe in themselves and that they can just keep it going even at 36, 37, 38 years old. It's going to be interesting. I think the age is going to be more of a factor quicker than I think some people are expecting at the moment, personally, but I think that, listen, the guy is proving science wrong. I mean, the guy is just phenomenal. So, in one breath, I'm saying, yeah, I think the age is going to catch up because that's what you expect from everybody. But on the next breath, I say, just my honest thoughts, well, maybe Djokovic is going to prove me wrong once again. I didn't think he was winning 3 of the 4 majors this year. I definitely didn't think he was, and losing in the final of the other tournament, that being Wimbledon, to the number 2 player in the world. I mean, this season has been remarkable for Djokovic, outside of the clay season where he had a few bad losses to Rune, Lajovic, and Musetti, but still won Roland Garros. Nadal not playing, but it doesn't matter. He still won the major, and himself he can only play. Who entered the tournament? Hopefully Rafa's back healthy next year. And yeah, he's going to have crazy motivations coming next year. So it's basically, what can Alcaraz do to really stop Djokovic? I think Alcaraz is going to be a really tough person to beat at Roland Garros next year. I think on clay, he's crazy. He's only improving. We saw how well he was playing at Roland Garros until he cramped up. He'll learn from that. I think on clay, Alcaraz is going to be really tough for Djokovic to beat. And Alcaraz is going to be looking for revenge at Roland Garros too. Djokovic is 37. To play long rallies on clay is going to be tough. But yeah, I think Alcaraz is going to be tough for Djokovic everywhere, but Djokovic is going to be tough for Alcaraz everywhere. I hope we see more Cincinnati, Wimbledon-esque finals and stuff, because that would be fun. Fun to watch for, I think, everybody in the tennis world is really hoping that is the case. I think everybody is kind of anticipating it. And then, of course, Coco Gauff. Can we talk about Coco Gauff? Killer off the forehand, amazing defense in the final as well. I said killer off the forehand just because that was a weakness, but it was really instrumental in some of her final kind of wins. Wins like against Smukova in Cincinnati. She also won Washington. She had never won a WTA 500 tournament before this summer, and then she wins Washington, then she wins Cincinnati, then she goes all the way in New York. It's really unbelievable what Coco has done. I think one of the better mentalities in the tour. She's up to world number 3. I don't see it stopping. I mean, I think Swiatek is going to stay a tough matchup for her, although she did beat her in the semifinals of Cincinnati, which you could still argue is probably maybe her most monumental victory so far in her career. If not that U.S. Open final against Sabalenka, where she came back from a set down. It would have to be one of those two, I would think, but phenomenal for her first 500, then first 1,000, then a first major is a crazy way to start. She's been around a while, 15 years old, beating Venus at Wimbledon, and she's really climbed up. And it was an incredible match point, too. She got it done against Sabalenka. It was hitting big, but she was hitting a lot of errors, and Coco really just picked up to a crazy level. She lost one of her serves in the third set, but, I mean, she had very few stumbles, and Coco's just incredible. Great personality, too. Seems like a genuine personality, so she hopped on Instagram Live right after she finished. And I like that. I mean, I think it's fun. I think it's fresh. I think Coco Gauff is great for the sport, and she's improving really quickly, as she has from the start, at 15 years old, like I said, starting off. So those are some big things. I'm going to get into some U.S. Open as I go through the Grand Slam awards anyway. I'm just thinking if there's anything else from the U.S. Open I want to recap before I get started. Sinner he lost his Zverev in an epic 5-set battle. He started cramping in the second set. I'd like to say maybe the third set, started the third set. I think it was end of the second set. But that was an epic 5-set battle. I commentated on that one for Quality Shot Tennis. Don't forget to subscribe to Quality Shot Tennis, by the way. I have a podcast on there as well that I've already done a few episodes on with a great tennis analyst as well, Liza Westcott. So make sure to check that out as well. That's on Quality Shot Tennis. I also do some live streams for that channel as well. Also, Ben Shelton reached the semifinals. It's crazy drama with him and Djokovic. He was doing crazy celebrations, crazy phone call celebration against Djokovic, and he was getting hyped in their semifinal too. I guess Djokovic didn't take a liking to his celebrations or the fact that he wasn't really calming down the crowd, which was which goes getting in the way of some of the kind of 40, like a long cheer on one of Djokovic's faults and stuff. I feel like Djokovic probably didn't like that Shelton wasn't trying to calm them down, but instead was probably hyping them up more. But Shelton, exciting young player, but I thought it was quite crazy that Djokovic did his own phone celebration to him. You don't see often celebrations that are that confrontational, because taking his own celebration back at him is crazy. But in some ways, the greatest, probably the greatest player of all time. He won that match, then he won the whole tournament. So Djokovic has nothing left to prove for himself. That's for sure. And then, that's kind of my thoughts on the U.S. Open. I mean, Novak gets to number 24, ties up Margaret Court on the women's side, outright leader on the men's side. I mean, he has nothing left to prove. He's just trying to climb up to new heights. But something I think that's interesting, this is kind of my wrap-up on the U.S. Open. Something I think that's interesting is that Novak he might be thinking about Alcaraz in the future. Alcaraz might try to get to... people are talking about Alcaraz might get to 30 majors. Federer was the first to 20. Alcaraz might get 30 majors. But Djokovic needs to raise this number up so that Alcaraz has a tougher number to beat in the future. I mean, it's like that Wimbledon final. I mean, it's a great final now. Maybe in the future that could be even much more important than we come to realize. So it's just something funny to think about how... we'll see how good Alcaraz is. Maybe he won't even get to 20 majors. Who knows? But... it's possible, because 20 majors is crazy in itself. But he's on an all-time trajectory, and there's going to be more guys coming up in the future too. Tennis keeps going, all-time greats keep coming up, but it's going to be hard for somebody to beat a player like Djokovic, especially having to play against two of the greatest of all time as well, in Roger Federer and in Rafa Nadal. All right, and without further ado, I want to bring out the segment. First annual Grand Slam Awards. So, I have different categories on here. Got different categories here. 4 different Grand Slams. Like I said, this doesn't include Cincinnati, Madrid, Washington, Dubai, none of those tournaments. It only includes the Grand Slams: Australia, France, Wimbledon, and New York. It only includes Australian Open, French Open, Roland Garros, Wimbledon, and the US Open. All right, best match. So I'm doing men's and women's. Some of these I'm going to breeze through. Some of these I'm going to take a little bit longer on. But best match. For the ATP side, I got Alcaraz Djokovic Wimbledon final. I mean, I don't know if this one needs more saying. I'm going to say a hot take. I actually think this one's better than Cincinnati. That's my personal opinion on it. Cincinnati is crazy in how topsy-turvy it was. The mental strength of both players, how chaotic it was, the high level they brought out, especially in that third set. The third set, probably one of the best sets ever played. It would be hard to argue against it with the high level that they showed and how topsy-turvy it was. Alcaraz is insane. Match point saves, the long games at 5-3, 5-4, 5-5, going into a tiebreaker. I mean, it was a crazy match. But Wimbledon, I mean, talking about Wimbledon, what is there to say? Alcaraz is level in that fifth set. The way he took that fifth set, you heard it throughout for a while. The young guys can't do it against the old generation. They are mentally not strong enough. Alcaraz just turned that completely on its head. He just took it 5-3, 15 love, or love 15, I think. I think it was love 15. Alcaraz hits a drop shot, then a lob combination. He wasn't in a great position to even play the drop shot, but he was gutsy, and he played the drop shot, then he played the lob for a winner, and he made an amazing stick save volley just in that last game as well. And he did something that, listen, that match is historic in so many ways. Djokovic hadn't lost on center court for over a decade, and Djokovic won 4 straight Wimbledons, I believe. And he, I mean, you can say so many things. Only 5 players had won any of the majors outside the US Open since 2005 Australian Open. When Marat Safin, it's one of my favorite stats. 2005 Australia, when Safin beat Federer in the semis, then beat Nalbandian in the final in straight sets. It's like, since that, only Wawrinka, Murray, and the big 3. That's it. Those are the only guys that have won a major outside the US Open. Del Potro has won the US Open, Cilic has won the US Open, Dominic Thiem, Medvedev, Alcaraz last year at the US Open. Nobody until Alcaraz at Wimbledon had won a major. In fact, nobody born after 1987, nobody born after Djokovic was born, nobody younger than Djokovic had won a major outside the US Open until Alcaraz beat Djokovic in the Wimbledon final. Mind-blowing. Nobody in the 90s, nobody born in the 90s had won. It was somebody in the 2000s, 2003. May 5th, 2003, Alcaraz was born. That was the first guy born after 1987 to win one of those majors. So that's really crazy. Outside of the US Open. Medvedev born in, I believe, 1995, I'd like to say. But yeah, Alcaraz Djokovic, sensational. Djokovic led up on a few key points, backhands in the tiebreaker, swinging volley in the 5th set. But it was just those exciting moments. It was high level throughout, especially from Carlos. Carlos rebounded from a 6-1 first set, then won 6-1 himself in the third. Third set was crazy too, like a 30-minute long game. Very exciting throughout, and the stakes really raised it up. WTA best match, Jabeur Sabalenka Wimbledon semifinal. I'll probably take longer on the best match than I will for some of these other categories, which I'll kind of breeze through a little bit more. But Jabeur Sabalenka, that's the biggest live stream that I've done for the Quality Shot Tennis channel. That is something I like to pay attention to too. Not because because of the numbers, but it's fun for me. I like to get the big streams, and that was a huge match between Ons Jabeur and Aryna Sabalenka. Sabalenka was up 4-1 in the second set, then Ons Jabeur came back and won the match. And listen, I think everybody I think almost everyone counted Sabalenka out. Counted Ons Jabeur out. Sabalenka was down a game point as well at 4-1, and it was like, it seemed all that Jabeur was not going to be able to defend the finals at Wimbledon. She beat Rybakina from a set down in the quarterfinals, but then to beat Sabalenka from down 4-1 in a set was amazing. Very high level throughout as well. So those are my best matches for the men's side and the women's side. Best major, I have on the men's side, I've got Wimbledon. It was incredible. There's an underrated match at Wimbledon as well, which I'll get to later in one of these categories. But But, just the whole tournament was amazing. Outside of the curfew, there's a curfew problem where a lot of the matches weren't finishing, but outside of that, it was phenomenal all around. And then on the women's side, I also have Wimbledon. Listen, what do we have? We have Swiatek versus Bencic, which is underrated. Swiatek saved 2 match points. Huge match for her grass court career. I think that will give her confidence that she got through that for next year, even though she lost in the quarters to Svitolina. Svitolina Azarenka, which was a crazy third set tiebreak match. Vondrousova Pegula nearly had the match won. She was up 5-1, I believe, in the third set. And then also Jabor Rybakina, Jabor Sabalenka, the match of the year for me that I just mentioned. Standout performance, category number 3 of the Grand Slam Awards. Medvedev beating Alcaraz, US Open semifinals. The defense, the immovable object that won against the unstoppable force that is Alcaraz, the wall behind the court, the ice versus the fire. It was Medvedev beating Alcaraz in the 4 sets. The first set, Medvedev winning that. He was stone cold, so focused. His anticipation was incredible throughout the whole thing. He just put Alcaraz out of position, played him, and just really did everything he needed to do. He was getting errors out of Alcaraz by playing such effective defense and not letting any balls go past him. And that was crazy to watch. Mukova beating Sabalenka in the Roland Garros semifinal. I think it's kind of underrated now. But it was a crazy first couple of tiebreak sets. Mukova played incredible. Sabalenka served for it at 5-2, 40-30, and Mukova came back and won 7-5. Sabalenka's semifinal problem continued, which made it very cathartic when Aryna Sabalenka won her semifinal against Madison Keys at the Open, despite losing in the final. Maybe she has a major final problem now, but I don't think so. But the major semifinal problem was a problem, because 2 of the great matches I've named so far were epic semifinal losses from Sabalenka in semifinals of majors, which made it that much more impressive that she could come back against Keys. And that was definitely in the running as well, but Mukova played incredible in that semifinal. So semifinal of Roland Garros for the women's, Mukova beating Sabalenka. That's my standout performance. Mukova played crazy. And Medvedev beating Alcaraz in the US Open semifinal. Best final. Let's breeze through these a little bit more because I have a lot of categories here. So best final, I've got Alcaraz versus Djokovic at Wimbledon. I already talked about that one. Then I have Rybakina, Sabalenka at the Australian Open. Just hard hitting all the way through. The third set was a lot of fun. Some great moments throughout. You didn't really know who was going to come out on top. It was a great kind of tone setter for the season, for the kind of dominance we saw. But Rybakina, Sabalenka, Swiatek, they basically got to the finals of all the tournaments. Rybakina got to the final of both the Sunshine Double tournaments, got to the final of Rome, obviously Australian Open. Rybakina had a great season, especially up till Wimbledon and the grass court season, but had a good season overall. And then also, and Sabalenka, we know what Sabalenka did. Major semifinal of every major. Final of 2 majors, one in Australia. And Swiatek, we already know it already. She won Roland Garros and had great showings throughout so many tournaments, a lot of Masters finals for Swiatek, including in Madrid. Those are my finals. Rybakina, Sabalenka, Australian Open final, and then Alcaraz, Djokovic at Wimbledon. Rivalry I want to see next year. So, the rivalry I want to see next year, I put 2 down for the men's side. Medvedev versus Alcaraz. I want to see more Medvedev versus Alcaraz, especially the next time they play. You'd have to think Alcaraz still likes his chances versus Medi. Depends on the surface. This is a very surface-dependent rivalry, but I think that will be really interesting going into next year. I hope we see it again at the US Open, for example. If not Australia as well. Australia would be great too. And then also Sinner versus Alcaraz. We got to get Sinner versus Alcaraz. There's something about Sinner Alcaraz that they just bring out crazy tennis from each other. Their US Open match is still one of my favorite matches of all time. I think that match is crazy. And going into that match, people were worried, is this next era going to stand out? How are we going to enjoy this next era after this golden era we had? But I think that match was like a staple. Tennis just keeps on going. What they showed in that match was crazy. So many amazing moments throughout. Alcaraz with the behind the back. Alcaraz saves a match point. Sinner looks injured, out of it. And then he somehow blitzes Alcaraz 7-0 in the third set tiebreaker. Alcaraz with a ace down the middle of the box. When do you see an ace down the middle of the box to end the match? 5 hours and 15 minutes. 2 young guys physically, mentally battling each other out there. I can talk about that match for ages, but 5 hours and 15 minutes of the highest quality, freshest, just most athletic, amazing tennis out there on the fast courts of the U.S. Open. It was really incredible, and the crowd atmosphere was unrivaled at the U.S. Open last year. Okay, underrated moment. For the WTA. Rivalries I want to see for the WTA, Rybakina Sabalenka, I don't know, I just talked about the Australian Open match, 2 hard hitters. It was incredible in Indian Wells as well, long tiebreaker in the first set. That was a great match. And Mukova Sabalenka, I want to see a rematch of Roland Garros because they just played a tight match as well, I think in Cincinnati. Let me check that. Cincinnati, where Mukova beat Sabalenka in 3 sets. So Sabalenka's going to be looking for revenge in a big way. Okay, and then underrated moment. So this is what I was talking about with Wimbledon, underrated moment. So, for underrated moment, I've got Molchan-Dimitrov US Open match that was just played, first round. Incredible shot making. I watched almost that whole match. High level shot making. Molchan is a lefty player that I think plays really well at his best. Good shot maker. Dimitrov saved 3 match points, and it went 11-9 the third set breaker, including a very clutch backhand half volley drop shot winner down to match point. Dimitrov's been playing well all season. He's gone up against a lot of top opposition. I think he's primed for a great result. I hope to see it for him. He's kind of mentally let down a lot of big matches. I'm not necessarily feel very confident he's going to have a great result, but he should have a great result because he's playing very good tennis across all 3 surfaces. And he's always there. He has the longest active streak of Grand Slam appearances consecutively. So he's played in the most Grand Slams recently. So he's always there. He's always playing. Rublev versus Bublik, Wimbledon. That's the Wimbledon match I was talking about. Incredible match. Rublev was up 2 sets to love. Alexander Bublik played insane and nearly came back. He looked down and out in the 4th set. He brought that one back. Very close to the route, and then 5-4, Rublev serving for. Bublik looked like he might come back. I think it's 30-all. They played the most incredible point. Bublik with an extended grunt backhand down the line, and it seems the crowd goes crazy because that would have been one of the shots of the tournament by itself. And the crowd goes crazy because surely the point is over. Rublev, in half a second, hits a squash shot winner, and everybody is stunned. I watched that live on the screen right before I went to commentate a different match, actually. I can't remember what match it was. But I just couldn't believe it. It was like the Tiafoe versus Struff match point in Germany. It's like I couldn't believe how good of a point that was to the second to last point. I've noticed a bit of a pattern. The second to last point in the match often brings something crazy. It's the Federer-Tweener versus Djokovic US Open. It's a player trying to get to the finish line, get to match point. Often match point can bring nerves. So match point, not always the best tennis you'll see, but the second to last point of a match, that can be crazy, to be honest. But anyway, that point, Rublev hitting the squash shot winner was just, that's crazy. That's crazy. Off of what was a winner off from Bublik. So that was my underrated moment. That's my underrated moment. And then let's see, let's speed this up a little bit. Don't want to go 3 hours with the podcast, but I'm enjoying the first annual Grand Slam Awards. And then Swiatek versus Bencic in Wimbledon, which I touched upon a little bit. Bencic played crazy. She can be dangerous. And I think that was my kind of underrated moment. I think that's an underrated match. It got overshadowed by all the other incredible matches we saw at Wimbledon. People say stuff like, we don't need grass court tennis. It's like, nobody plays well on it. And then we have all the epic matches at Wimbledon, the history. This sport started on lawns. It started with people setting up a net and hitting a ball over the net on lawns. By the way, to explain the name, which I feel is fitting in the first podcast, this podcast is called From Lawns to Arenas. I hope to do more of these, we'll see, but From Lawns to Arenas, and it's called that because the sport started on lawns, now it's in giant arenas. The start of the sport, we gotta respect the history of the sport. It started on grass. It started on people just playing in their backyards on their lawns. From lawns to arenas. And I think that's crazy. And I think that we got to respect the history of the sport. And listen, the fast play, it creates for some great shot making. The highest level of the sport, highest level players adapting to it, improvising, hitting touch shots, crazy trick shots, aggressive shots coming to net. The way that clay brings out rally balls and rallying, hitting from the back of the court, I think that grass brings out another part of the sport in itself. So we need grass. Wimbledon was crazy this year. All right, speed this up a little bit. This category I don't need to spend a lot of time on. Best player. This is really probably the main category, I guess you could say, because what's above best player, but the answers I think are so obvious to me. Best player on the men's side, Novak Djokovic. I think we'll see some Alcarazes. If you say Alcaraz, I'm not going to say that much. Alcaraz, I think, reached the semifinals of every major he played this year, so he played crazy too. But Djokovic played all 4 majors, won 3 of them, and made the final of the other one, lost in 5 sets. He was 1 set away, technically, from the calendar year slam, which I kind of think is out of Djokovic's hands now. I see some people still having hope he'll pull that out. But I feel like after this year, I don't see him pulling out another calendar year Grand Slam. Might be the guy who stopped him, Carlos Alcaraz, who does it the Grand Slam in his career. It's been a long time since we've seen somebody win the Grand Slam. I've been obsessed with the Grand Slam and somebody winning the Grand Slam ever since I started watching tennis, more than anything else. I'd love to see somebody do it in my lifetime, but it might be Alcaraz who actually wins the Grand Slam. He seems to be playing crazy across all surfaces now with the grass courts unlocked and across all the Grand Slams. So, but yeah, Djokovic with the crazy, I mean, he won 3 of the 4 majors. He's my player on the men's side. WTA got Sabalenka. She also reached the semifinals of all of the majors she played. She won the first major of the year. She's played crazy. Even the 2 major losses that she had in the semifinals were absolute epics. 2 of my matches of the year to Mukova and also to Jabeur, which is my match of the year. But yeah, Sabalenka and Djokovic. And then we only got a few more here. I guess we have quite a few. I don't know if I'm going to go through all of these. I've got a lot of categories. We'll breeze through the last few. I got a lot of categories here. Best point. My favorite thing in tennis is crazy shot making. I've said it before. I love crazy shot making. And the best point for me is on the men's side. I've got Alcaraz's squash shot against Djokovic at Roland Garros. I just don't know what else it can be. Alcaraz having so many incredible things in a single moment. I watched this one live on TV. I can say, as long as I've been watching tennis, I've probably never been quite as bewildered and astonished as when I saw this shot. I couldn't believe he made it. And especially after I saw the replays. It only got better the more that I saw the replays, all of the angles, as it happens with Alcaraz. Because at first I thought it was a miracle. I thought he hit a miracle shot. Then the more I saw the replays, I was like, he did that on purpose. He hit this incredible shot on purpose. And I was like, I just couldn't believe he made it. I couldn't believe he made it. Down the line, right down the line, past Djokovic. It reminded me of Federer's tweener at the US Open. But it holds a candle to it, for sure. It might be the greatest shot ever hit. I'm saying it's the best shot of the year. It might be the greatest shot ever hit. And I've seen all of them. I've seen so many of them. Tipsarevic versus Hewitt at Davis Cup. I've seen so many back in the day. Becker's incredible athletic dives. There's so many to say, but I mean, this shot is crazy. So many crazy around the net shots as well, even back in the day. But this one was absolutely just nuts. Alcaraz is just, just his balance to hit that shot on the full slide, his quick thinking to get around the ball. I mean, it was so many things in a single moment. And just the way he got around the ball to hit a squash shot and the strength to hit it down the line for a perfect winner. I mean, he knew exactly what he needed to do. He had a 1 in a million shot, but 1 in a million is not 1 in a million for Alcaraz. Because he hits a 1 in a million shot almost every match, but this one was special. And then I got Muchova-Sabalenka rally at Roland Garros at 4-2. It was an incredible rally. I watched this live on TV as well. Sabalenka ended the rally, I believe, with a backhand winner cross court. Really, for me, potentially an all-time great rally. Not the best ever, but it was certainly very, very good. A lot of shots hit, corner to corner. 4-2, 30-all in that third set. It was just amazing hitting from both players as that whole match. I would recommend anybody who didn't watch that match live to watch the highlights, because that was an amazing match. One of my favorites, along with also on the clay courts, Madrid final of Sabalenka versus Swiatek. That's another one of my favorites of the year. But doesn't come in a Grand Slam. This is the Grand Slam Awards. And then for the iconic or WTF moment, I've got... on the men's side, I've got Murray versus Kokkinakis, which was an amazing match at the Australian Open in general. 5 hours and I believe 5 hours and 45 minutes played. High-level tennis. Kokkinakis up 5-2 and 2 sets to love. And Andy Murray with a medal hip at 34 years old comes back, plays crazy tennis. But it was in that third set where Murray just hit shot after shot. Kakanaka's hitting smashes, and Kakanaka's probably could have hit better smashes, but Murray's just strength to just keep going for every ball, and he had some incredible gets there. And then I love his reaction afterwards. It's one of my favorite reactions I've ever seen on a tennis court. He's like, I can't hear you, to the crowd, even though the crowd is going absolutely insane. And it was kind of funny. But yeah, the Murray getting it done, even after all this time, Murray's still getting it done. So that was my point of the year. And then Wozniacki, what else? Or sorry, that was not my point of the year, but my iconic moment was that Murray Kakanakis match on a whole, and that point where Murray just kept returning Kakanakis matches. Kakanakis, shout out Kakanakis. I love what he brings to the tennis court, but the guy just can't stop losing epic matches. This wasn't at a Grand Slam, like I said. This is the Grand Slam Awards, but Hurkacz hit a backhand winner screamer return to save match point against him in Miami. Third set. Tiebreak. It had like 268 points played, which is crazy in a best-of-3 match. But yeah, that's Kakanakis can't stop losing epic matches. And then WTA Wozniacki beating Kvitova right out of a 2014 match at the U.S. Open, epic fashion. She played incredible, so precise, hitting down-the-line winners. I mean, just so precise, amazing defense. It was really like Wozniacki announced that she's back to the tour. That was really cool to see. Best rivalry, I got Alcaraz versus Djokovic. I mean, an amazing second set at Roland Garros, including that crazy squash shot, which I will go ahead and say I think could be one of the best shots of all time, if not the best. It's right up there. I know that's a big statement, but I'm not opposed to big statements. It's one of the better shots. And that was a crazy match. And then obviously Wimbledon final. It's hard to not pick Alcaraz Djokovic. Then the WTA, I got Ostapenko versus Goff. Ostapenko destroyed Goff, or beat Goff, sorry, not destroyed Goff, but beat Goff at the Australian Open. Then Coco Gauff got her revenge, destroyed Ostapenko at the U.S. Open, including a bagel set. So that was, it was hard to pick a rivalry through the Grand Slams on the women's side. They had a lot of great matches at the Masters, and a lot of different, something about the women's side is, 7 of the top 8 players in the world have reached a major final this year. It was Sabalenka who reached 2 major finals that stopped that from happening. Pegula didn't reach a major final. She's never even reached a major semifinal in her whole career. But yeah, that was we saw a lot of different players at the top in the finals. We saw obviously a lot of Rybakina, Sabalenka, Swiatek in the semifinals and some in the finals as well. But there's a lot of different players at the top, so that was interesting. So it's hard to pick a woman's. Okay, let's breeze through these last few, and that will wrap up the Grand Slam Awards. Biggest upset. I got Australian Open. The Netflix curse, FAA losing in the 4th round. He was the furthest of all of the Netflix stars. We had so many upsets. Ruud went down the 2nd round. Guy only loses in final or 2nd rounds. That still remains a pattern. 8 straight Grand Slams. Casper Ruud's either lost in the 2nd round or the final, which is crazy. So I got Australian Open on the whole. Also Fritz losing to Papirin. A lot of upsets there. And then also the Wimbledon final. I got Alcaraz beating Djokovic. And I mean, listen, in terms of stakes, I think most people would be lying if they didn't say that they were shocked. Because Djokovic didn't lose on center court for 10 straight years. And I respect Alcaraz. I knew that eventually he would be good enough on grass, but for him to do it in 2023, not 2024, not 2025, for him to show up in 2023, I know it's not an upset like one of those others where it's like Mirazan beating Alcaraz, which was crazy. It's not one of those upsets, but it's still an upset in that I was shocked that Alcaraz figured Djokovic out on grass courts, where Djokovic seems so unstoppable. 4 straight Wimbledon's won for him to do in the final this year, and the stakes it had on that final too. That was a massive and very monumental upset for me. Then Ostapenko beat Swiatek at the U.S. Open, goes up 4-0 in their head-to-head. Swiatek is 7-7 in 4th round matches, and she's like 12-3, I believe, in matches after that, something like that. She's way better after like quarterfinals and onwards. In 4th round, Swiatek has had trouble, and she's had trouble versus Yelena Ostapenko, kind of that all or nothing aggressive play. Queen Panko getting it done. Ostapenko is crazy, and she's fearless. Ostapenko is fearless, let's put it that way. Best comeback, Monfils versus Baez. Personal favorite live stream that I've done on the Quality Shot Tennis channel. A lot of people showed up for that one. And it was a great match. It was Monfils couldn't stop hitting winners in the 5th set. It was all about Gail, who Sebastian Baez has won 3 titles this year. He didn't play badly. Monfils just couldn't stop playing amazing. Hitting winners, was down 4-0, a game point for Baez. Climbed back. He was down 3 breaks in that 3rd set, and still in that 5th set, I should say. Still won. He had an amazing comeback in the 2nd set, I believe, as well, to not go down 2-0. Gail Monfils is crazy. It's like that Nishikori comeback in Toronto as well, 2017, where, I mean, Monfils just does things you've never seen on a tennis court, including at I mean, yeah, he's just always hitting crazy shots, crazy around the net slap shot, and I just couldn't believe against Rublev at UTS. Monfils is just, he's something else, right? Monfils always hitting crazy shots, doing crazy comebacks. As long as Monfils stays around, that's great for the sport, because he is crazy. It's crazy. Jabeur versus Sabalenka. At Wimbledon, I already talked about that, but on Jabeur, shout out. Hopefully she gets that major. Lost a heartbreaker to Vondrousova in the final. What else? And then we kind of have the story. We have great rivalries, even outside just the big 3 kind of big guys. We have Alcaraz Djokovic, which everybody's super excited for. Medvedev Alcaraz showed up at the US Open. We have great rivalries outside of those big players, which is great. And that was a big story for this year, Alcaraz versus Djokovic. And then also on the women's side, we have Rybakina Sabalenka. We've got a lot of great rivalries across both. Big story going into next season. I touched upon it when I talked about the Wimbledon Alcaraz-Djokovic final. But I'm thinking, how far is Djokovic going to go? Is he going for number 25, number 26? We'll see. It's going to be interesting. And what can Alcaraz do to stop it? I think Alcaraz is going to be very tough. Like I said, on the clay courts, he's proven he can beat him on grass courts. And on hard courts, I mean, Alcaraz is playing great across all 3 surfaces. Djokovic turning 37 next year. We'll see how far Djokovic can go. I don't want to be the one to doubt him now. And WTA, we have the players at the top. And if it's going to be shaken up a bit, we have Rybakina, Sabalenka, and Swiatek. Is it going to be shaken up by a player like Coco Gauff? On Jabeur, she's going to be back. Jessica Pegula. Mira Andreeva, young player coming up. I don't know if that's going to be 2024, but that's something interesting. And then finally, last category of the first annual Grand Slam Awards, we got honorable mention player on the men's side. So honorable mention player, this is just a player I feel like shouting out. Just a player that I feel like deserves a shout out, that didn't really get into many of the other awards, but I feel like deserves something, even if he maybe didn't win a major or have the best results. But I felt like I liked his level. On the women's side first, Mukova. Karolina Mukova, I felt like she played really well, and I was impressed by her at the US Open as well. At Roland Garros final, nearly came back against Swiatek in an amazing comeback. But either way, final of Roland Garros, really played great this season, so shout out Mukova. I think she'll be one to watch for a while. And then also on the ATP side, I got Grigor Dimitrov. And also Tommy Paul. I want to shout out both those guys. Tommy Paul, top 5 win percentage on hard courts going into the US Open. He's been playing a good ball, but especially Grigor Dimitrov. I mentioned it earlier. He's been around. He's played every single major since 2011 Australian Open. That was the first major tournament Dimitrov played, outside of a wild card that he got at the 2009 Wimbledon tournament. He's played 52 consecutive Grand Slam tournaments. He's always there. He always is so fun to watch. Looks so good. He's played so good this season. Reached his first final since 2018. Not the majors, but at in Geneva. He's been playing great all season, so I'm hoping Dimitrov can have a good result, and I want to shout him out because I hope that mentally he can cross the line versus one of these big guys. Alright, that's been the first annual Grand Slam Awards, and this has been the first podcast from Lawns to Arenas. Like I said, from Lawns to Arenas, kind of the name, kind of noting the history of the sport. I want to do a lot on this channel, rankings, on the channel as a whole, and also on this podcast. We'll do stuff, but every week I'll try to post one next week as well. Just talk about whatever I want to talk about related to tennis, and I'll have more videos in general posted up on the channel. Tennis Commentary Booth with Anthony Hirsch. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. We talk all things tennis. This is for the tennis diehards, for people following tennis and like to talk about it. We try to grow the sport as well. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it. The likes help the channel get passed around. Main thing, I hope you guys enjoyed it and come back for more. I'll see you guys at the next one.